Shit. Damn.
Larry, you in the car?
Yes, sir. I just about rear-ended somebody.
Well, don't do that.
Nah, I'm almost home. I'm turning down my driveway right now.
All
Oh
right.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not it's not that important. Let's not injure anybody here. Oh.
Especially yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I try not to.
All right. So how is everybody this week? I see we've got both of the good doctors on.
Well, my son had his wisdom teeth out today, so we're having all kinds of fun.
Huh,
A
lot of videos.
I wish I had videoed him when he was on the nitrous because I was laughing out loud.
I'll bet. I'll bet. Yeah. 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 Kitty, what's the temperature in Asheville?
It's been almost 90 here today.
Miserable. Miserable. I'm in Lake Lure, and it's always a little hotter here, but it's miserable.
Yeah.
Too hot for this part of the world.
I love it.
For this part of the world. When I was a kid growing up here, you rarely saw a 90-degree day. Now it's every day in the summertime.
Lake Lure's where? Where's Lake Lure?
Lake Lure is just south of Asheville.
Oh, that's where it's at.
And just a little east and mostly south. And so it's where the Broad River starts. For those of you who know what the Broad River is, and where it starts, comes out of the dam at Lake Lure. That's what starts the Broad River, and you can step across it where it comes out there, and you know how big it gets when it gets down to South Carolina. But this is where the Broad River change starts at Lake Lure at the dam. The Catawba River starts at Lake James at the dam. You know how big it gets. It turns into Lake Norman and then Lake Wiley and Mountain Island and all of those. And so all of them start here in kind of the western foothills or the edge of the mountains. We're kind of along that rim. And so it's not like being up on top of the Continental Divide like in Asheville, but usually it's not this kind of hot here. But it's gotten that way now, climate change and all. So it's, but you know, with more modern times, you got air conditioning. When I was a kid, nobody had air conditioning. Of course, you couldn't have stood it now like it was. Of course, back then we were a little tougher. Pretty miserable today. All right, I see it's time for us to get started. I'm going to share my screen and go over a couple things with you. I want to remind you, we've got several folks who have done a great job and already finished their OMA. If you'd like to get started on your skip for the summer, got to get a jump. Again, my notion is that you will have plenty of time in the fall, but if you're the kind of person who likes to work ahead, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to look at the skip again just briefly, and then we'll look at our weekly schedule. So let me make sure I pull. Let's see what I want to pull up here. Skip task and prompts. I want to remind you again. Let's see what the question is here. Chat. Get started on task 3. Yeah. Remember, if you're going to start the skip, make sure you read the prompt carefully. When we do our needs assessment for task 1, prompt 1, we're only looking for gaps in communication. Remember, that's that parent piece from your teacher working conditions survey or your advanced ed survey. And when we get to prompt 2, we're only looking at the school leadership section. That's the biggest mistake that you can make, is start doing an overall needs assessment that talks about academics or discipline. Or no, we're only looking gaps in communication, and we're only looking at school leadership. Don't make the mistake of putting in teacher leadership. This is not empowerment. We've already done empowerment. This is school leadership, what we're going to be looking at here. So if you do that, you should be good. Again, you're going to do short and long-term objectives. For your task 2, we're going to make, we're going to identify those in task 1. We're going to talk about the resources for them in task 2. Please remember to use your graphic, the partial graphic organizer. This one down here, it's also there. And then when you do your marketing plan, you'll use the entire one here. And so that's the difference. So that's just some reminders. I want to remind you again to get, you need to get started on your competency folio. If you've finished your OMA, you can go in and put in 12 or 13 of those competencies that match what you did in OMA task 4 or something similar. It doesn't have to exactly match, but you need to get at least 12 competencies in there this summer so that you can do, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to get more than that, because the way it goes is you finish your 2nd round this summer, you start your 3rd round in the fall, and then you have to finish it. And so this is the start of the 2nd round. At some point, you're going to have to do a whole round one semester. You got a lot of time left this semester. Now would be a perfect time to do it. If not, you can do it, but try to get 12 in there this summer anyway. So make sure you do your competency folio. Again, we've got some materials for you if you want to jump on the skip. We've got drop boxes. It'll work just like the OMA. If you want to send those in, I'll grade those and give you feedback, and we'll move you right along. But that's up to you if you want to do that. So we don't like to hold anybody up that keeps going, but make sure you get your competencies in your competency folio. I don't think I need to pull that up in task stream, but I will right quick. Let me see. I can close that. I have to make sure I don't leave it up and running because it will crash on you. All right, so for task stream, remember your competency folio. Y'all are, you've got 21 of these over here. Remember, there's nothing that goes under digital learning competencies. That's just a reminder of what they are. They are embedded in the other 21. So communication has one embedded in it. One of them has to be the following digital learning competency. So remember, communication through visionary are the 21 that you've got to have 3 artifacts each for at the end of your program. Make sure you get at least 12 of them done and on your 2nd round this summer. Your 1st round should be complete. Should have 1 artifact for all 21. Communication down through visionary. If you don't, you need to finish your 1st round and get at least halfway on your 2nd round by the time that summer is over. So make sure you remember, we're putting in artifacts, pictures, manuals, documents, screenshots, those kinds of things, that show the work that you did. So make sure that you do that. Now, remember, we've got some documents that guide you through that process in terms of the artifacts that you will have generated from doing your evidences, and also you'll generate artifacts through the activities of your internship, the suggested activities. So make sure you get those artifacts in there. Anybody have any questions on artifacts and your competency folio? Remember, again, when you go to task stream, do not go into your DRF. Don't go into it. Go into the one that says folios and web pages, and you should have a folio there. Remember, it's one for the whole time. You just continue to build on it. You don't make a new one each semester. All right. Anybody have any questions on competency folio? If you do, your coaches will be more than glad to work with you, as I told you last time. So let me sign out of that. Remember, when you're in task stream, every time you leave, you need to sign out, and just leave it like that, and you can just click and sign right back in. If you let this thing time out on you, as I've told you, it may be 6 hours or tomorrow before you can get back in. So don't let that happen to you. All right, let's look at our weekly schedule and catch up to where we are. All right, we're in week 7, class number 7. This is June 30th. And so your task for this week was to interview your AP about discipline. What I suspect you'll find is what's their biggest concerns about being consistent, how much time it takes, working on restorative justice rather than punishment. What system do you use? Do you do PBIS? Do you follow your code of conduct? What's surprising about the process as you observe it? And most folks say, I'm surprised at how much time it takes, or how involved you have to be, or a lot of folks say, I'm surprised at how much parents fight you on the process. And that's all part of it. And our resident principals will talk to us about that tonight. So that's what we're looking at. This is your 2-week warning. Next week, we're off for the holiday. The following week, we're back with case study number 3. Let's look at that. Let me close that one out. Case study number 3. Okay, we're going to intentionally be looking at case study number 3 through the lens of malpractice. And we know what the 3 standards of malpractice are, and we're going to see all 3 of these in this case study. And I'd like for you to be able to try to identify, intentionally did the wrong thing, unintentionally did the wrong thing, or did not act when had a duty to act, or what's known as negligence. All 3 of these are present in this case study. Yeah, and so let's look at that case study. Let me go here. So this is an LBGTQ case study. And so we've got 2 fellows, Jimmy and Willie, who want to go to the prom. They have displayed inappropriate behavior around school in terms of inappropriate displays of public affection that has gone unaddressed to the point where they have the community up in arms. And so there's your first. I'll give you the first one. There's the first nonfeasance in this case. Had a duty to act and didn't. The little things, the antecedent behaviors, little things that become the big things. This all stemmed from Jimmy and Willie being overly amorous at school. This could have been any 2, male, female, 2 females, 2 males in this case. But this whole case stemmed from an inability to act or not acting when there was a duty to act. That's how this whole thing got started. And of course, it got out of control as things like this usually do. And so you will see, misfeasance, malfeasance, and nonfeasance in this case. You should be able to identify those, and it asks you specific questions. You need to answer your questions. You need to put this through the lens always of our ethical concern. We need to look at this, how we view this case from an ethical standpoint as well as a legal standpoint. And we should be able to easily identify those standards of malpractice. We should be able to easily see those throughout this case. You did a great job on your last case study. One of the things that I often find is it's easier. The case study 2 is easier. You know what's expected and those things. But there's also something that's operating in that second case study as well. That first case study is usually a lot closer to you because it's a teacher. And you're looking for ways to say, what could we have done different? It was just a straight case of a teacher behaving badly. It wasn't a case of not knowing the law or following the law. But it was harder for us as former or our current teachers. It's harder to see this. Last week, we had a superintendent, and it's easy because we're detached from that, or you folks are. I'm not, but you folks are detached from that. It's easy to see that his behavior was illegal. It wasn't as easy for you to see that teachers' behavior was illegal. Again, we're not throwing dirt on teachers. But again, the notion here is nobody can give you permission to break the law, whether you're a teacher or whether you're the superintendent. You have to follow the law at all times. And so that's what we'll be doing 2 weeks. Make sure that you're participating with your group. Check your emails. Make sure that you set aside a time that's convenient for all of you. I'm looking for collaboration between all of you. This notion that, I didn't show up or I didn't come or I didn't participate, that won't go well with me. The 2 things that superintendents tell me all the time, and I'm on the phone with them almost daily in these preparation programs and our partners, they want to see folks who can do 3 things. The number one is communicate. Number two is collaborate. Number three is manage conflict. The 3 C's: communicate, collaborate, conflict. Be able to manage conflict. That's the 3 most important things that they're looking for in a potential administrator. If you can't collaborate with others, they don't need you, because this is a people business. So make sure that as I told you, this is another level. This is a collaboration that produces a product. That's different than just coming on and sitting and talking to one another. This is another skill. This is another level, another layer of skill. So that kind of catches up and does all of our housekeeping. I'm right on my time of 15 minutes for housekeeping items. And so I will move into tonight's presentation for me. I do not have a lot that I want to go over because I want to reserve the time for our 2 resident experts tonight. But I'm going to close some of these things. I'll save that. I want to make sure that I hit, let me get over here on this one. I've got it already. So here's your disciplinary data reporting procedures manual. As I told you, this is the Bible on how to report incidents, what has to be reported, why you have to report them, Office of Civil Rights, all those things, what counts against your persistently dangerous calculation, what has to be reported to the Office of Civil Rights, what has to be reported to law enforcement, all of the things here, your legal duty to respond, to report, what you have to do. It tells you what incidents are. Remember, we don't just put things in Power School that we suspend kids for. We put incidents in no matter what we do to them. We put them in. We have to document all these things, even if we don't. Suspension is only one of the actions that we can take. And so again, I'll show you that again. Here are all the different state-defined actions in terms of descriptions of behavior. And here are the state-defined actions that can be taken against a student. So consequence or action types. So even if you just have a conference with a student, you still have to report what they did. What you did to them as a result of what they did has no bearing on whether it has to be reported or not. It's what they did has to be reported. And we also have some definitions for those acts of crime and violence in the back here. And it tells us, it reads us the rules again. Remembering, on the sexual things, the caveat on those is a person who is mentally incapacitated, and that's somebody who's in exceptional children's programs. A lot of those children, they are not capable of consent under the eyes of the law at any age. That's the one that's going to trip you up. That's the one that's going to come back and get you. A 16-year-old has sex. You say, well, they were old enough to consent. Even if they were willing, they don't have the legal, they can't consent. They don't have the mental capacity. That one will get you. So you need to make sure you read all of these. Now, there's also online, and you can Google it. I'm going to actually put this link in under this week. There is a YouTube video. It's an hour long. That tells you that guides you step by step. And if you've never watched this, you should watch this. It guides you step by step on how to enter this and why, and all the things that you need to know to enter this stuff in. And so, yeah. And it has all the things that you have to do. They walk you through it, and they walk you through all the screens. This would be a wonderful thing for you if it has all these things in there. So I'm going to copy that one. So it is a walkthrough of this manual and then how that manual translates to Power School. And so I'm going to add that. I've been waiting for that to come out. It just came out. I've been waiting for that one, the updated one. You can saw that's the updated one for this coming year. I've been waiting for it to come out. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in our shell, and you can watch that again. It's an hour long. But that reading that manual is going to take you a while. But if you'll go through that, you will be way ahead of the game of anybody else who comes walking in applying for an AP position. Again, you won't have your own account in Power School and be able to get into that administrative module until you get hired in your job. But you'll be way ahead if you go through that. If you look at that manual, spend some time with it, and then watch that video, I'm telling you, you'll be way ahead. That's about the best experience that I can get you at this stage of your career. So that will be a good one. And again, let me share my screen right quick, and I can go back actually to I'm going to put this under session 7 right here. Disciplinary reporting video. Let me move that out of the way. And there it is. And I'll move it. It goes with this manual right here. And if the manual won't come up, if it blocks you, you can just Google it you can just copy and paste that title into Google and it'll bring you up that manual. Let's make sure that links back to it. There we go. And there we go. All right, so we've got that one in there for us. And it's right there, that reporting video. All right, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to do y'all need me to open this folder or just stop my share and y'all can open your folder?
If you would just stop your share
Got
and
it.
that'd be great. Unless
All right.
Dr. Maraglia, you had something else?
I was just going to refer to the CMS code of conduct
Okay.
that you have
go
in
right-
there.
Sure, go right ahead. You
Okay.
want to go back to that then, Dr. Lamb?
Okay, I'll do that.
Sorry.
And what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to see if they've got just so people can do it, I'm going to see if they've got it online. CMS code of conduct. Let's see if we do it online. Let's see what we got. Yep. There we go.
Okay.
I see they haven't updated theirs online, but I'm sure they will. So here it is. And so you can do the same thing in your school district for your school. You can find your code of conduct just that easy. And so I am going, Dr. Maraglia, I'm going to make you the host and you can drive from here. Let me move this out of the way. I'm going to, you should be able to, let's see. I don't know if it'll stop doing that. Let's see if it will make you the host.
It says that you're the host, Dr.
All right.
Maraglia.
See if, and so you can share your screen and you can do the same thing I just did and Google it if you've got that up, and you can pull up one just like I just did and you can drive.
And that's what I am.
There you go.
Well, that was not what I was trying to share. Hold on one second.
Well, you know,
It sent me to the wrong place.
just You can share if you share your desktop rather than a document, it seems to work better. But
Well, let me try that again. Sorry about that, everyone. Well, it's still not cooperating.
just yeah, just click on one of your browsers down at the bottom. Click on Chrome.
Yeah, but
There you go, and then just you can do that. You can go to Web Connect, and then
I'll just pull it
there
up
you
again.
go. That's it. That's the way. Just CMS code of conduct. There it is. And then just click on that one that says, there you go.
Okay, everyone. Sorry about that.
That's all right. There it is, 2021.
All right, what I want to talk about a little bit this evening is how important it is. Well, first of all, discipline is going to be a huge part of your job because you're in a school, you're dealing with kids, you're going to have issues that are going to crop up all the time. And the biggest thing for you to remember is you need to learn how to follow the process, how to do things appropriately, because these things, I know it seems like every week we're telling you this could get you into trouble. This could get you into trouble. Well, I'm going to bring up an issue in a few minutes that we're dealing with right now in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools to show you that it really can get you into trouble. But something that you need to remember is you need to address the little things. You need to have a plan for the little things, the antecedent behaviors, so that you can try to prevent the big things from happening. Now, that doesn't mean that you can have the best plans in the world. And I know Dr. Caton is going to share with you her behavior matrix this evening. You can have all these processes into place, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to have big things that crop up. It doesn't mean you're not going to have a fight. It may not mean that you won't have a weapon to deal with at some point and other things that crop up in schools, but you need to try to have these things in place and you need to know how to handle the situations when they occur. And as Dr. Lamb said, everyone's school district has a code of conduct, or you may call it, in CMS, we used to call it the Rights and Responsibilities Handbook, but now we've gone back to the Code of Student Conduct. You're going to have something like that. I hope all of you have witnessed it in your experience. If you haven't, you certainly need to take a look at that. But let me just show you some of the things in here. When you have an incident that comes to you and you have to investigate, let me see if I can get down a little further, a little quicker. Let's start off with, well, this is going to be tied to what I'm doing tonight. So let's talk about the sexual behavior. And you have something that is reported to you. And if you'll remember, we said if there's something that is in sexual nature, you've got to get your law enforcement involved, correct? Do we remember that from a few weeks ago when Dr. Lamb said that? You do not investigate the sexual behavior. You've got to get your school resource officer or law enforcement involved because you are not qualified to handle that, but you're going to do it together. I'm sorry, I think I just got a call from my son's doctor. I'm a little bit, that kind of took my attention away. But you see here, when you have some sort of infraction, the way ours is in our district, and it's probably this way in yours, it lays it out for you how you're supposed to respond. If it's mutual sexual activity, you see there's a minimum response and there's a maximum response. If it's offensive touching or sexual harassment, and it's the same way if it would be a drug offense, or if you've got two students who fought, or if you have a student who is being being a distraction in class or being insubordinate in class. You're not just sitting there pulling out of the air what your responses are going to be. It's going to be very laid out for you. So if we go back to page 9, you can see here, it tells you what your potential responses would be for a level 1. A level 1 may be simply a parent contact, or it may be an administrative conference. You may need to refer them to a student services team. But as Dr. Lamb just said, no matter what the incident is, you have to put that into PowerSchool. Even if you just have a talk with them yourself, you still put that into PowerSchool and you record what your consequence was for that student. And then at the end of the year, there are 2 different discipline reports that have to be done. One is a discipline report that is for your school district, where you go and and the way we are in CMS, we do this quarterly. So it doesn't all hit us at the end of the year, and they're making sure that our errors we take care of any errors on a quarterly basis. And then at the end of the year, it just compiles everything, and you can see the total number of incidents you've had. And it even breaks it down into the violent incidents, if you've had any drug offenses, if you've had any sexual offenses. So everything that you've done based on your code of conduct, anything that you've put into PowerSchool, that report's going to be done at the end of the year. Then there's also a report in PowerSchool. These were just due last week, as a matter of fact. I'm sure Dr. Caton probably had to do hers as well, where you go in and you have to check for any errors that you have. And again, PowerSchool breaks it down into the different types of violations that there are, especially if there's any that are reported to law enforcement. And then once your errors are corrected, then you have to report that, you have to approve that report in PowerSchool. Now, in some schools, the principal is the one who takes care of that. Dr. Caton, are you the one who does that at your school, or did you actually delegate that to an AP?
Neither one. Actually, our central office does it.
Really? Okay. All right. Well, you see it, different schools do it different ways. I just did our discipline report last week, so that, and then that information is all reported to the state so they can determine if your school is a persistently violent school. So you've got to make sure that all of your information is correct, because that information is reported to the state. And then, as you know, then it goes out to the public through all the news media, and you want to make sure that your information is correct. But going back to when you have an incident that is reported to you, and as Dr. Lamb says, some of you have mentioned that you were shot with due process and the amount of time that it takes and the parental response. And I know that it can seem sometimes that this is taking up all of your time, but it is so vitally important that you take that time and you get that child's statement, and you take the time to track down any witnesses and get their statements. And if you've got any camera footage, we have cameras all over our campus, and we rely on them. If not a daily basis, it is several days out of the week. We are having to go to our cameras and check for something. And we even had a situation this year where a young lady told her mother that another student had hit her in the eye and given her a black eye. That's why she had gone home with that. And we were able to pull it up on the camera, and we found out that little girl actually ran into the wall in the gym. There was no student who hit her. But again, here we were looking for a student who had committed an infraction, and it really hadn't happened. And so we had to take the time to do the investigation, to talk to people that were in that gym so we could find out what really happened. And we had the facts, because it is about the facts. And something that you need to remember is when these big things happen, and they will happen, it's just like we've been saying this whole time. When you are learning to manage a school, you've got to make sure that you are doing the right thing. And doing the right thing is making sure that you are responsive. And covering things up is not being responsive. It is not, that should never be something that you are looking to do. You've got to do the right thing because it is the right thing, and you've got to show that through your leadership and to respond in an ethical manner. One thing that I wanted to bring up this evening is that we have a situation going on right now in Charlotte Mecklenburg schools. Some of you may have seen it in the news media. And I'm not making a comment one way or the other about anyone's guilt or innocence. It's just to show you how these things, that you've got to be so very careful on how you handle things and make sure that students are getting their due process. Because we've got a school right now where we've had some former students have brought lawsuits against the district because they are saying that their situations were mishandled at the school level. There's 2 young ladies that have reported that they were sexually assaulted while on campus. And again, I wasn't there, so I can't say what was happening. This is just the young ladies are reporting that they were told not to report these incidents, that they were not given their due process, that they may have even been told that if the aggressor, the alleged aggressor, was found innocent, they would then be charged with the school infraction of having sex on campus. So it's just a very sticky situation, and anytime I read anything like that, it just re-emphasizes to me the importance of making sure that you are following those due process procedures that you've been reading about, that you've been talking about when you interviewed your administrator at your school. Because by not doing that, it can really get you into some trouble. And there's a lot of commotion going on right now with that school. There's student protests and different things are happening. And it also reminds me of the importance of having a witness. I don't ever interview a student or even have a student write a statement without a witness. And I don't always just rely on my resource officer to be that witness. I always make sure we have another member of the administrative team there, because it's just for CYA purposes. Because now we've got a situation where you've got the school saying one thing, you've got the students saying another thing, and it's just always best when you can have that witness there to verify the steps that you took as you were providing that student with their due process rights. Any questions about that so far? And again, going back to this rights and this code of conduct, as I said, you may even have a child with attendance issues, skipping class, skipping school. And again, you've got your minimum and your maximum here, and it lays it out for you. You don't have to come up with this. This is all here for you to follow, but you just have to make sure that you're following the due process. You have to make sure you're putting this stuff in Power School so that everything is accurate, that you are being truthful and ethical in how you are handling these discipline incidents. Dr. Kate, do you want to? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Dr. Ragley, I had a conversation with my administration, and they were just talking candidly about a situation that had happened at our school. And one of the assistant principals had wanted to assign a certain number of days of OSS, and I think it was within the allowed number of days. You were just speaking about, that would be in the policy for the district. But then in the conversation, she said that she didn't think that somebody, and I can't remember who, but somebody in a higher position at the central office would approve that. So in the end, are there people within the district that can override or change your disciplinary course of action?
That can happen.
Let me address that one quickly. Any suspension or any action given by an assistant principal can be appealed to the principal. And if that is not upheld, that can be appealed to the principal supervisor, which would be the area superintendent or the superintendent. And if they don't get relief there, they can appeal to the board. And if the board doesn't give them relief, they can sue in civil court. So yes, the answer is that's why you need to make sure you fall within the range, that you've done all your investigation. You're not arbitrary or capricious. Please understand, you don't assign consequences in a vacuum. Parents have a right to appeal your decision at any level, all the way up and through going to court and suing you. They have that right. And one of the things that I always told my APs is, I'll support you, whatever you think, as long as you're within the range and you have followed all the procedures. I will not overturn. I won't try to be a hero to the parents. Now I know in some cases, especially in high schools, where you have a lot of APs and it's a big place. I had 6. I understand that principals, some of them have this hero complex or God complex, whatever you want, and they want to be the hero to the parents and always throwing the APs under the bus. That's not a best practice. After you do that a few times, you won't have any of your APs support you, or you won't be able to get anybody to work for you as a principal. But yes, and so when principals say to an AP, I'm going to have to reduce that, because I don't think the folks I would make the folks at the central office reduce it. I would not do that. I don't know whether your principal is grandstanding or they're legitimately, they're legitimately just telling you, you need to back that down because you don't want to get overruled. But if I thought as principal that it was that it fit within the standards, the minimum and maximum, I'd say I'll support you. But yeah, that can happen.
May I also say, Dr. Lamb, when I have a very contentious situation, we have a representative in our district office for Director of Student Services, and I will call that person sometimes just to make sure about some things. And you can do that because, if I will say, do I really, do you think that this is going to, a parent could, easily overturn this or anything anything that anything that's really not just a typical suspension, something really, really hot, contentious, I will definitely call them. Plus, I'll call them also for a heads up, because chances are those are the parents that call the superintendent or the county office and complain about whatever you've done. So I always, as a courtesy call, always call the district office, my person, and say, hey, look, I want to let you know this situation just happened on campus. Just so they could be aware, because chances are they're going to be calling me because they're going to say, hey, this parent's really mad you suspended them. But if I call them first, they kind of know what's going on.
Yeah, so. I've been on the receiving end of, I've gotten 1,000 of those calls if I've gotten one. And what I would always tell the principals is this, I can't tell you what the board's going to do, but this is what I can support. From what you're telling me now, if you're giving me the straight of it, this is how much I can support. You say this happened, this is what you want to do, and I can go for that, or I can't. Now that doesn't mean that they won't appeal over my head to the school board, but as the superintendent or the designee, I've made that decision 1,000 times. But yeah, that's a good. That's APs don't do that. Principals do that. You work under the auspices of your principal. So when you get your AP job, you might want to ask your principal what you think we can get. The principal might want to call that person, the superintendent or the designee at the central office, who will eventually rule on that case before it goes to and when it's in professional staff, before it goes to the elected school board. And you never know what they're going to support or not going to support. It's become very tribal, and I use that word not in a pejorative sense, but we're now, when those cases go to the elected boards now, unfortunately, they don't look so much at the facts of the case as to, is this part of my constituency or not, when they want something like that handled or overturned or reduced or whatever. They don't care about the specifics. It's all about the tribal politics, unfortunately, and that factors into it. So, but you got to make sure that your hands are clean all the way through, that you followed the proper processes, and that's all you can do. Remember, this is not about punishment. It's not about retribution or revenge. It's, you know, we should be looking at restorative justice, and we can't get so emotionally attached. You know, I think this kid ought to have been shot, and they don't want to shoot him, or they don't go along with me. You've got to. I know this is easier said than done, but you've got to understand. You can always, what you decide can always be appealed, and so you can't. You know, is this really the hill you want to die on? That's what it boils down to. Is this really the hill that you want to die on? You know, sometimes you have to live. You know, learn to live another day. You have to move on. But yes, that is part of it.
Something else I would recommend is whenever you get your first, or whenever you start off new with a principal, is when you get your first few incidents, you may want to talk with them about what they see as a reasonable response, because I have worked for people before that they do not want to have a large percentage of suspensions in their school. And before you go and make some missteps that you didn't realize would be missteps, you need to see where that person's mindset is, because you're going to have to tailor things a little bit to your leader. And it doesn't hurt to know, as I said, I had to realize that there were some people that they really wanted us to not suspend as much as possible, because they were getting heat from the district about, you've got too many suspensions. So you need to have those conversations and to get familiar and comfortable with what your boss is going to be wanting to see from you. And again, if it's something that is controversial, or you have some concern about it, you have some concern about the parents maybe going downtown, always make sure you're keeping your principal in the loop. Again, so if they need to call in their, and Charlotte Mecklenburg, our learning community superintendent, and give them a heads up and make sure you've got them on board with their support. Because I have also seen learning community superintendents, there's not even a formal appeal, but they'll tell a principal, no, you're not going to give that particular consequence. You've got to change that. And you want to avoid that as much as possible, because then that just makes you look ridiculous in front of the parent.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. All right, Dr. Lamb, if you'll allow me to share, I'm sorry.
All
No,
right.
I was just going to say, you want to show
Yeah.
us your.
Yeah, if I
Share
can.
now.
Yes, sir. I got you. All right. So I'm going to go through
Right.
some of the things. You got it? Everybody got it? All right,
Yes, we got you.
I'm going to go through more of some PBIS things and things that I do to avoid a lot of consequences or suspensions. I did this when I was an elementary principal, and I've also done this as a high school principal. What I do, or what I did, first of all, is I formed something called a behavior committee. And in the high school, it's somebody from every department is on the behavior committee. I took them to a restaurant one day, and during, I had coverage for them and all that good stuff. And the whole purpose was for them to create a behavior matrix, but I didn't tell them that's what we were doing. I had them take sticky notes, and I said on one sticky note, I want as many sticky notes as you want. I want you to write down things that you would send a student out of your classroom for. And so they started writing down everything that they would send a student out for, like we call it choice, or some people call it student management or something like that. So they started writing them all down. So then what I did after that meeting, we kind of talked about some stuff, is I came back and I collected all of the sticky notes and everything that was the same, I put together, and then kind of, separated them out. We had another meeting, and I asked them, I said, these are the sticky notes that you said that you would send students out for. I said, now out of these sticky notes that we've said, what would be something that you would say would be something that you think a student should automatically be suspended for? And they said it, and they tiered them. And then we started talking about what would be some things that, would really, you would think that, needed at least a parent contact or something like that. And that's what they started to do. So then that's how we organized our behavior matrix that we did. This is exactly what they said. Now, this is, if you notice, there's some language in parentheses beneath everyone. This corresponds to our Pitt County Schools Code of Conduct. Like Dr. Brackley just showed you, CMS is Code of Conduct, and it had all this verbiage. Well, this is the verbiage that is in our Code of Conduct. So there's no questions whatsoever. So a teacher, they would say refusal to sit. I'm sorry, my Alexa is talking to me. I got to tell her to be quiet. Anyway, so it would correspond directly to what they said it was. This is what a teacher said: obnoxious behavior. What does that mean? It would be like a classroom disruption. Now, for us, we do not have. We have something called Educator's Handbook. That is what a teacher puts in their discipline. Educator's Handbook for us automatically uploads to PowerSchool. Assistant principals, they just have to every week or so make sure they just push a button to go in PowerSchool and say to bring over all the education handbook instances over. I don't have to necessarily do a report. The county office does report. They'll send it to me ahead of time and I'll approve it or not. I'll look through all the reportable offenses and things like that. But before I wanted to, so let me go back again. So the behaviors, not only with the behaviors, but we also gave consequences. If you notice with the consequences right here, it says parent contact and a minor incidence in EH, that's Educator's Handbook. Educator's Handbook, like I said, is our reporting hub, and it has a section for major discipline and minor. Before I suspend any child for a tier 2 right here, I'm going to look to see if that teacher has contacted that parent for anything else. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to send it back to that teacher and I'm going to say, you've not contacted this parent. You need to do that, all that kind of stuff. And that, because most of these are still minor disruption, nothing major, well, except for this one slaps a student, behavior or something. So, or sexual remarks, that would be something we'd have to handle, of course. But I want to see that they have made some parent contact for refusal to sit, all those little obnoxious kind of behaviors. And these are all the consequences we have said or given. And these are consequences that the teacher said that we did through a behavior committee. And then we also, what we did is we included all the definitions that came from our county code of conduct. Now we'll say to you, don't think that you have to know everything with the code of conduct. I'm the principal. I still look at the code of conduct before I make any major decisions. I look at it every single time. I would highly suggest you do the same thing as well. And if you see we have something different for cell phones, you might, Dr. Lamb might go crazy about this. And like cell phones, we ask you to turn them in at the beginning of the class period. We're not going to lie to you. We do that because kids can't handle cell phones. Our tardy policy is you let them in, you count them tardy, and then it turns into a behavior. We're not going to send you out for just being tardy because we want you in class. That's just what we do. But we are PBIS, so we have a bolt matrix where the chargers, so it's like a lightning bolt charging. Be respectful, obey the rules, learn, take responsibility. When you go in our school, you will see it posted everywhere, and I'll show you some of that. But my biggest thing is that I treat these kids kind of the same that I did in elementary school, meaning that I want every classroom teacher for the first 5 days to talk about what does it mean to be respectful? What does that mean? What does it mean to obey the rules? What does it mean to learn? What does it mean to take responsibility? And I want to see that they have made anchor charts with every single one of their classes. So when I go in to the classes the first 5 days, I'm looking to see if they've gone over what respectful is. Sometimes they'll do respectful for day one, obey the rules. And that's how they create their classroom rules. Even for high school students, it's very important for you to explain to them, what does it mean to be respectful in the classroom? Maybe some teachers want you to raise your hand, that, they would say that, or to not talk above somebody, over somebody else, or to make a comment or rude comment. So I'm very big about making sure kids understand the rules within your classroom and what does it mean to be respectful? What does it mean to take responsibility? So that's one big thing that we do. So
Dr. Caton,
yes, ma'am.
Would you go back to your discipline tab?
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to point out too, what we've even had to include in our school handbook is, like you've done there, breaking down the incidents, and this is something that a teacher can handle. This is something that would need to involve an administrator. We've had to do something very similar and break it down to that, because a student not coming to class prepared is something that should be able to be handled in the classroom. And we use a system called Kickboard, and how we have it laid out is, with the first infraction, it needs to be addressed with the teacher, or, the teacher addresses it. The second infraction, there needs to be some sort of intervention in the classroom, whether it might be moving a child's seat, or maybe you need to give them a pencil, something of that nature. And they have to go through their 4 steps before anyone from administration gets involved, unless it's something like a fight. That certainly is a different situation that needs to be handled right away. But the teachers put the infractions in Kickboard, and it notifies administration, and it also notifies our behavior management technicians. And once that student has been placed in there for those 4 steps, the BMT comes, they make a phone call home. And then if the behavior continues at that point, then we're going to start looking at some sort of consequence that's outside of the classroom. So a very similar kind of thing with your tiers, and really just sometimes you just have to lay it out that way, that these are things to be addressed in the classroom. These are things that you're going to have to refer to the office.
Right. And I also wanted to point out that you see right here, it says barefoot referral. My golly, Siri keeps coming on. I don't know why. But anyway, for us, I have a behavior specialist. I do have some students who are oppositional defiant. I have some students with autism as well. And this right here is simply this. These are these students that just need a break. And they're, kid you not, she has, because she knows that her high flying kids, she gives those teachers a purple folder and has just like random worksheets in it. And she has a sticky note on it, and it says, please go give this to Miss Barefoot. And so when those kids are really not doing what they need to do, she'll say, hey, Anna, can you go run me an errand, please, and give this to Miss Barefoot? And when she sees that purple folder, I mean, I'm kidding you, I'm not lying to you, for a high school kid, because they don't know. They'll bring it to her, and she'll know. She'll start talking to them and things like that. Just like, oh, how's it going? Because she knows, hey, they're really having some issues in that class. But that's a way to kind of not trigger them even more. So that's what that right there is for that purple folder. So I just wanted to show you that. But this is our discipline matrix. Also, you'll see this all around our school, just like what we said. There it all is. You'll see, it's everywhere around our school. You'll also, on our announcements and things, you'll hear somebody say, to keep charging towards excellence, because that's our motto. And we are PBIS. You would never think kids would like these kind of things, but that's one that we did. Popcorn and a movie day, they loved that. Of course, our field days and things like that, they love that as well. Even high school, I would have never believed it. And then we even made some movies about some of our adult days coming up. Anyway, it says Skinner Films. That's my instructional coach. He made all this, and it's got lots of cool pictures and things of this whole incident. Was, this behavior party that was getting ready to happen. And our kids, they love that kind of stuff. And once again, I would never thought that with high school students. So anyway, I know I'm missing some things that I wanted to tell y'all, because I know I talk really fast, and I apologize for that. Any questions about any of the things that I've shown you as well? Great.
Okay. The bottom line here, folks, is there's 2 things that you need to be sure that that as a new AP, first one is inter-rater reliability, and that's what Dr. Caton and Dr. Miragler were showing you, the range. What would the principal give this student? What would other APs give this student and you want to be within that range so that they can't shop discipline. We want this person to handle this one or that one, or that there's there's a big discrepancy in what you give versus what somebody else is give. You got to find that sweet spot, that inter-rater reliability. When the three of us, the current administrators, see an incident, we would all pretty much within the same range give the same consequence. You got to do that with your administrative team. And the principal leads that, and just like Dr. Caton just showed you, she sets that matrix of, I want this handled this way. This is the range that I want. So you've got to develop these things. Just having the disciplinary data reporting manual and a code of conduct, those are your guidelines, but you've got to develop day-to-day routines of how you operate in a school, so that that you aren't always in a conflict between your administrative team or your administrative team with parents and students. You're trying to create a harmonious environment at your school, even when there's incidents that occur. And that's dependent upon you working together as a team and developing your own routines, your own guidelines. Now, the first thing you learn in the Army, find the manual. Second thing, read the manual. Third thing, follow the manual. You have to, you got manuals that set apart the big parameters, but you've got to dig inside of that and narrow that down to how it's going to work at your school. Nobody can remember all this stuff. I can, because I got plenty of time. But people who actually work for a living and have a real job like these two ladies do, they can't sit and grind on manuals all day. But they know where to go and look and reference it. They call people. They get input from the folks at the central office. They make sure that they're not always in a conflict, a push-pull all the time, and it makes administrating the school much more pleasurable if you're not always in a conflict with somebody, either students or parents, or between yourselves. And so the point of tonight was, how do you take these big things that we've talked about and then translate them into everyday working documents and systems that work for you in your school? And I can't give you the answer, because every community and every school is a little bit, you got to find that sweet spot. But you've got to go into this with, if you know the rules or know where to find them, and then you're able to find your place inside of that manual, that rules, that system. The big thing is, know what that manual says, or at least know where the manual is, so you can find out what it says if you don't remember. If you do that, you will stay out. You can avoid 90% of these situations where you're always in a conflict with either students or parents over discipline. And if you can do that, I'm not telling you it's fun, but it's doable. But if you're always in a conflict situation, the job will eat you alive. You won't find any peace. And so that's the notion here. Resident principals, I'll let you close us out tonight. We wanted this one to be a shorter session going into the break. Closing comments from either or both of you.
I will say in Pitt County, well, I'm sure every county, they do run reports. They want to look, see your discipline data and things like that. Since I have created the discipline matrix for our school, we did it 3 years ago. Our discipline data has been going down tremendously. And also focusing more on the students and their social emotional learning and things like that. We've seen a huge decrease. We decreased the first year by 30%. Then we went to 16%. I think then it was like 19. So we've been seeing a huge decrease in our out of school suspensions, which is really big for us. For also, our students know our rules. They know if we have 1 or 2 fights a year, that's a lot for us, because they know what's going to happen. They know automatically. I don't play around with discipline, meaning that I know that people want to have lower discipline rates, and I do too. However, I really believe that you have to set those standards and you have to set those expectations, and students have to know what's going on. And so for me, also making sure those like I said, teachers say everything that's going on. And then also for me to have those meetings with the students, classroom meetings at the beginning, make sure they know the expectations, because all it's going to take is the word of mouth that hey, they don't play, and we don't. And you're going to end up with your discipline decreasing. The more you give, to me, the more you give in, it's going to keep on going up and up and up. You have to set that standard about what's expected of your school and what you need to do. And also, because we have so many, I'm a very policy procedure kind of person. Because of that, I think that's why we also don't have a lot of discipline as well. I'm always, there's always procedures for everything that we do. So I think that's another big thing as well.
And along with that, I think that goes back to when you address the little things, when you have those processes and procedures in place, that you can address the little things. Again, it doesn't mean that you might not have a fight at some point, or you might not have something else big pop off. But when you have those expectations and those procedures in place where you can address those little things, it does make it somewhat easier to be able to address those big things, because you can show consistency throughout everything you've done. A few weeks ago, we told you one of the most important things you can do is to get trained on the teacher evaluation instrument. That's going to make you very valuable as you start looking for AP positions. The next thing you can do that's going to be just as critical is getting yourself familiar with this discipline data reporting. Again, you're not going to probably be able to get trained until you're actually hired, and people understand that. They know that you're not trained with it yet. But if you could go ahead and take the time to watch that video, it's really not, Power School is not difficult. Once you do it a few times, you're going to have the hang of it, and you're not going to have to think about it. You may need to refer to make sure you're putting in the right rule and the right infraction and all that. You'll get the hang of it. That's not impossible. But go ahead now, take some time now to get familiar with things, because I can guarantee you, no matter what, you're going to have to deal with the evaluations. You're going to have to deal with discipline. So go ahead and get yourself prepared for that. And you're going to have to deal with upset parents. Some of you said that was a surprise to you. Parents don't ever like the idea of their children getting disciplined, but sometimes it does have to happen in order for you to keep order in your building, and so that you can make sure that instruction is happening and that kids are safe. So just keep that in mind.
All right. Thank you both for the evening, and always remember, there will be many times in your career what you would like to say to a parent is, your kid's an idiot and it's hereditary, but you can't say that. You have to learn to communicate, collaborate, and conflict manage if you want to be able to do this job well. We will see y'all in 2 weeks. We hope you have a good break. Be prepared for your case study number 3, and we will see you after the break. Everybody have a good holiday and stay safe. Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us.